Hello and welcome to Point of View, where we give students a place to listen, learn, and lean in. I'm your host, Jonah.
Rachel.
And Rahul.
And today we'll be talking about the Last of Us show, discussions, and thoughts just on everything. And we will be talking about spoilers, so keep that in mind. Okay, let's begin.
Yeah, so the first thing I kind of want to talk about is that in the game, right as Joel's daughter dies, well, her name's Sarah, right as Sarah dies, the game immediately cuts to a title card that kind of is like a fungus kind of growing, and the people behind the Last of Us show kind of use this as inspiration for that intro for the show. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. So what did you guys think about the show in general, these past, 4 episodes?
I went into the show knowing literally nothing. I started watching it because there were a few actors in it that I really like, and I knew their work was really good, so I was just like, you know what, I might as well start something else. So I started watching it, and I think I went one episode in and was like, whoa, this is like an hour and a half long. This is really long. So I watched it, and then I was like, okay, wait, this is actually really good. So I think I finished the entire series, not the entire series, because there's only 4 episodes, but I finished it really quickly, and it was really good. I found myself anticipating, Sunday nights at 9, and I'm like, okay, wait, I'm really excited for this. And then I think I started watching the 4th one, and I was like, wait, oh my gosh, it comes up Friday, yes!
Yeah, so I went into this show knowing nothing. Well, I'd heard about the game since it's been a pretty big deal in, the gaming world. But I knew nothing about the show, I knew nothing about the characters, and I heard it was good, the first episode, so I decided to watch it, and it just immediately hooked me. That hour and a half was just one of the best hour and a halves of television for me, and it really got me just into the show, into the world, and it, started my obsession with the show and the obsession with the characters, and it's so well done, the cinematography, even just the camera work, how they don't have a ton of, camera stops. They let you sit in the world for a little bit. It's all very well done.
Yeah. One thing for me, I kind of in preparation for the show, I kind of played the game a week earlier.
Yeah.
And I kind of beat it in that week. And for a video game adaptation, incredible. It was incredible, a very, very strong start to it. It was it definitely was a little bit unique to as compared to the game, but still it met that expectation though. So
yeah, it's huge right now. The show, it's episode 4 got about 7.4 million viewers, and it's been increasing each week, percentage wise in viewers, and that was during the Grammys too. And you'd think they'd lose viewers during that, but they actually gain them. So the shows just keep going, and it's still growing a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I found that during while watching the show, it was I found myself looking at Rollins film tips that I learned in AP Lit, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually really good. I think Jonah was talking about the cinematography, but I felt as if I noticed that the camera's shaky, or not necessarily very steady throughout the show, which I feel kind of adds an element of
it works,
being in the actual world itself. It doesn't feel like you're watching it from the outside per se. You're in the actual world.
Yeah, it has it's kind of shaky to show just how shaky the world is at the moment and how destabilized it is. It's not super steady and safe.
So Rahul, you said that you'd played the game. Are there any similarities that you found between the actual episodes and also the scenes from the game?
Oh yeah, 100%. The basic plot of the show, obviously it's connected to it, but the show kind of does a couple different things here and there. It extended the show extended the beginning, the intro to the story, a lot more than the actual game. Which makes sense because the show has to have a little more story, than the actual game. But in the show, we kind of to talk about the intro. The show kind of walked through the beginning of of the day where it all went crazy, and whereas in the game it immediately cut to the night with Joel and his daughter Sarah watching a movie. Well, in the show, it showed Sarah's day throughout. Sarah's experience throughout the day, and instead of it being from Joel's kind of a perspective at first, it was through Sarah's. So they definitely,
Yeah, every character got so many scenes in. Like each, like Bill and Frank, I know weren't like a super big part of the deal, and they had an entire episode dedicated to them, and we learned so much more about them than I think we did in the game. And I think just the characters themselves, they're all so layered and they're so perfectly written. The dialogue throughout the episodes, especially episode 3, it's so well done.
The Bill and Frank episode absolutely broke me. I wasn't expecting to, like, I could kind of feel the way that it was going, and then it eventually, like, it showed their relationship over the years, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet. Like, first I was kind of upset that we weren't following Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, come on. I want to hear their story. And then I was like, okay, wait, no, I want to see Bill and Frank's story. And I was really excited for them to meet each other. And then it happened, and I was like, are you kidding me? And I think it was Bill who said, you were my mission. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that entire episode. That's probably my favorite episode of the show, just from a writing standpoint specifically. Just everything was perfect in that episode.
Yeah, for me personally, I'd say it's pretty good, but I kind of like the intro a little bit more.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, with that Bill and Frank episode, huge difference when compared to the game.
Yeah.
But like the thing that's risky about like video game adaptations in general is that with those differences like that, there's a risk, right?
Yeah.
It can absolutely flop, or it can like absolutely like soar. It can be incredible. And I think this is an example of a game adaptation, different take that kind of soared.
Yeah. Yeah, that entire episode, it needed to be about an hour and a half. So we could have time with Joel and Ellie. And again, like Rachel said, I was kind of sad that, we're not seeing with Joel and Ellie. But then I saw this whole other story, and then it got me invested in that. And in that maybe 50 minutes we had with Bill and Frank, I was so invested in the characters, and I'm just impressed with how they got me to like them so much.
Yeah, even though episode 3 was an incredible episode, no debate. It, however, was very, very different.
Yeah.
When compared to the game, because in the game, I kind of forgot the name of the town that Bill and Frank were in, but in the game, obviously, you kind of play as Joel. You kind of play as Joel throughout the town, and you kind of like see how Bill kind of armed and prepared and made that town safe. Yeah. And in my opinion, I think that in the game, the game kind of expanded on that survivalist side of Bill a tiny bit more, because in the game there's many traps that Bill set. There's these one I think in the show in episode 3 they talked about they showed this one trap where if someone or an infected crossed the line, it would shoot something.
Yeah.
Same exact trap in the game, but in the game you didn't expect it at all.
Yeah.
It's it was very sudden. And then another difference is that, we already talked about extra details and scenes, and the reason for that is probably because with the game you don't really need a lot of story. You need story, but you can just gameplay will take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with a show, for a show to be good, you need a lot of backstory, a lot of details, a lot of things to make it really sell. And then one other very, very big difference between the game and the show is that with the game, Tess's death was regardless, Tess's death was a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice regardless, yeah. But it was a different type of sacrifice. In the game, Tess died in a shootout with Fedra, which is the military dictatorship that takes place in the universe.
Do you prefer sacrifice in the episode?
I think I probably prefer the. I mean, it's hard to say. That's kind of a hard question, because with the show where with Tess blowing herself up, it's kind of a more memorable sacrifice, whereas with the game, it's kind of feels like something that's kind of glanced over a little bit. You had some time with her, but you weren't able to build that connection. But you, the viewer, were not able to build that connection with her as in the show.
Yeah, and moving on to Joel and Ellie's relationship. So, what do you guys think about that?
I I like to I see a bunch of memes on like TikTok and stuff about me or like POV me getting ready to watch Pedro Pascal take care of like an unwanted child because that's essentially what happened in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So I very much like the idea that like, well, like it's a father-daughter kind of like relationship in a way, but it's also just like Ellie kind of, I feel like, from what I know from the 4 episodes that I've watched, I feel like is trying to value the relationship and also just kind of make the most of it. I mean, she's so curious about the outside world and trying to understand it that she has this guy who lived life before the cordyceps. So I think it's a sweet one, especially maybe not like the last like 2 minutes of episode 4, but like kind of the very end of it with like the joke book. Yeah. I thought that was really funny and really sweet.
Yeah, their character development and just how the characters evolved through these 4 episodes was so massive. Like Ellie specifically, she started off very closed-minded, sort of mad at the world, mad at Fedra, mad at like Pedro Pascal's character Joel. And then she eventually opens up, like, in episode 3 and episode 4, and we see, like, a completely different side of her. It feels like a completely new character, because she's more open and she's more relaxed about him without, like, the threat of death. But then again, that threat of death is still imminent for them.
Yeah, yeah. To add on to Joel and Ellie's relationship, do you guys remember that Book of Jokes?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you an actually kind of interesting mechanic in the game.
I know it's big in the game.
Yeah, so what happens in the game is that whenever you're, like, idle or, like, you're, like whenever like Joel, you're like when you're playing, like you put down your control or like you stop moving, Ellie will actually take out that book and start reading some jokes.
Oh my god!
So it's kind of cool evil. That like they were able to, you know.
That's so funny.
I know, yeah. It's such a cool feature.
I've gotta play the games. I've been working on getting them. It seems getting in that world myself seems like so much fun.
Yeah, it definitely is very interesting. And well, I would personally say this is a successful video game adaptation.
Yeah.
Even though there's like such a limited amount of episodes, I think it did such a great job with the short amount of time that it's been out.
Yeah, and there haven't been many like good video game adaptations because turning a game into like a movie or a show is very difficult because you have to give it that backstory, and a lot of the times that backstory just doesn't work for the story that they're telling, but it worked very, very well for this show from what I can tell.
I also want to comment on, like, I know this isn't necessarily, like, The Last of Us centered, but, like, HBO, from, like, the few shows that I've seen through it, just seems like such a phenomenal, like, service. Or, like, they seem to really put the effort in. Not to diss anyone else, but, I mean, like, you talked about one of the guys worked on Chernobyl, and that was such a good mini-series. I was like, whoa, I kind of got freaked out, so I stopped watching it, but it was, for the few episodes that I watched, it was really good. I haven't watched Game of Thrones yet, but I've heard great things, but being able to take something that it almost, like, already exists, but also being able to adapt it in a way that makes it new and fresh really takes a good person, like a good set of skills.
Yeah. To adding to what Rachel was talking about, I think making these adaptations good is like it has like a lot of factors. One, how good like the quality of like the game is kind
source
of
material.
Source material. Yeah. Two, like the quality of the crew you have behind it.
Yeah, a lot of things need to go right.
Yeah, a lot of things need to go for sure.
Yeah.
I have a question real quick. Was the timeline of the outbreak in the show the same as the game? I've heard.
Oh, no, it is not. So in the game, the outbreak initially occurred in 2013. Yeah, whereas in the show, it was pushed back like 10 years.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I think they still like played it out really well. It's like if I was someone who had not played the game before and I was first watching the show, I would have believed, the game is based in the game also starts in 2003.
Yeah,
they did a good job with that for sure.
Yeah. So do you guys want to talk about I know a lot about this at the moment. I've researched this for hours. The realism of how possible this fungus infection is. It's actually already happening in like Arizona and California. A specific type of fungus gives you pneumonia, a very rare type of fungus. And there's actually, like, the cordyceps fungus that the show is based off of. Like, it's a real thing, and it actually infects insects and turns them into a hive mind. And how it's a real thing, and how they talk about in the first episode how if the temperature were to get a little bit warmer, it could actually happen. That's a very real thing.
Yeah.
And it happens in the insect world already, and it's not a mass pandemic at all, but the only reason it's not a mass pandemic within the insect kingdom is because of how far away insects are. They're not like in super close proximity like humans are, but it's scary the more you look at it and the more you learn about it, how real it is. So
Yeah. Speaking of, do you want to talk about that intro with that one TV guy?
Oh my god, the intros were terrifying.
That was terrifying, but it was like terrifyingly good.
Yes.
If that makes sense, because like the way that it was, you would like be able to believe that it was like an actual thing on like real life TV.
Yeah.
Like it blows my mind how good they did with that.
Stops a lot of fantasy or action movies from being really good, like the realism of it, like in failing to get that realism, but they made the world seem so much like today and exactly how it feels like it would play out if it really happened.
Oh yeah.
My few questions. I mean, okay, I know that from my understanding is that they changed some of the mechanics of the cordyceps in the game to the show.
Oh yeah.
The spores.
Yeah, no spores.
Yeah. So for a little context, so in the game, Joel would have to put on like a mask, like any like person who, you know, isn't turned yet or isn't infected, they would have to like wear this mask, a gas mask, so that they would not breathe in those spores.
Yeah.
As in the game, though, that is how. So there's two ways that one can get infected. One, being bitten by an infected, or two, they have to breathe in the spores. Whereas, a very risky but effective difference or different take with the show is that instead of those spores being there, the infected have like these like tendrils in their mouth that I guess like that are kind of like a part of the that grew from the, I don't know the whole anatomy behind it, but it is very interesting very interesting different direction, but I think it kind of worked.
Yeah, another thing that amazed me throughout the show is like the CGI and how perfect that was. Like especially when they're walking through Boston and looking at ruined Boston, like all the vines everywhere on the buildings. I couldn't tell which buildings were actually real and they actually put stuff on, or like I couldn't tell at all, and that's when you know your CGI is perfect.
Yeah. I really like the after or the inside making at the very end of the episode.
Oh yeah, that's nice to get that. Yeah.
I learned that the actual infected or the clickers, like most of that is practical. Like a lot of their makeup is practical effects.
Yeah.
Another thing is I was always wondering like between like the actual outbreak in 2003 according to the show, and then when we come back to Joel in 2023, is I want to know how they like fixed the world, or like how they established all that
how
stuff.
How they made like a QZ in Fedra. Do you have any insight?
Oh, Fedra?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that's a little bit uncertain for me as well, but like in the game, when you're walking in the QZ, the quarantine zone, you can kind of see like people like cooking up like rats and stuff.
Yeah.
So, kind of fun, but yeah, no, I think that's just like, I didn't do too much research on that. I didn't like, I don't know, it's a little bit like, obscure kind of.
Yeah. And another thing, like this show kind of released at the perfect time in terms of the COVID pandemic and how it's like kind of not drawing to a close completely, but the cases are definitely dying down for sure. And this show talked about just how real that is and how it can come back so fast when no one's expecting it, and that's what just added to the realism.
Yeah, for sure. So, fun fact. So I think it was in an ad, but Troy Baker, the original voice for Joel in the games, he talked about how this show isn't really a zombie show. It's a show more about like how people deal with their surroundings and how they deal with others.
I'd say it's more about just love and just getting a second chance to love and just do it right again. Because Joel messing up the first time with Sarah and getting his second chance with Ellie.
Yeah.
The show is them. It's Joel and Ellie, just the relationship and them growing.
Yeah.
Save who you can save.
Yeah, exactly.
This concludes this episode of Culture Shock. Thank you so much for listening. For a transcript of this episode, head to the Point of View tab on our website, nhsmessenger.org, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at NHS Point of View for updates and new episodes. I'm your host, Jonah.
Rachel.
And Rahul.
And this has been Point of View.